Now we have to go back in time a couple years to 1930. Despite the success of the medium, film was regularly critiqued for its ability to corrupt the public through its depiction of taboo and sensitive topics. According to the production code that spawned from this paranoia, so correct entertainment raises the whole standard of a nation. Wrong entertainment lowers the whole living condition and moral ideals of a race. These critiques would sometimes creep into direct censorship, even before the Hays Code came to be. In his article, Morality and Entertainment, Stephen Vaughn describes, as early as 1908, Chicago police refused to permit Nickelodeons to show Knight Riders, 1908, because it encouraged malicious mischief, arson, and murder. This continued into later decades, with large cities barring certain movies from being shown given its content. The worries about content of films were not helped by the numerous public scandals that Hollywood stars got into. In January of 1923, film star Wallace Reid died from withdrawal complications due to a narcotic addiction. The murder of famous director William Desmond Taylor spawned a number of conspiracy theories. They ranged from the perpetrator being a former valet, a drug dealer, or even a gay lover. Famous comedian and actor Roscoe Arbuckle was infamously accused of raping and murdering actress Virginia Rappe. He was eventually acquitted, but Arbuckle ended up being banned from the screen by Will Hays. Hays will come back later. Given these controversies, the public became wary of those who were making these movies, and how their immorality could seep through the screen and taint society. Due to the corrupting tendencies of cinema, the film industry sought to regulate itself to avoid further public outrage. In 1922, the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors Association, MPPDA, was created to avoid the government stepping in to regulate film directly. William H. Hays, told you he'd come back, served as president of this association, paid a salary of over $100,000 to run it. He became so closely associated with this organization that it was nicknamed the Hays Office. Despite his heavy, and I mean heavy, hand in censorship, Hays still had some optimism about the good that cinema could do. He emphasized the educational and inspirational value of the medium, its ability to bring the best in music, literature, science, and medicine to nearly everyone.
The motion picture, too, is a most potent factor in the development of a national appreciation of good music.
And its ability to advertise American goods globally. According to Vaughn, he even said that it would help to raise living standards everywhere. Sounds kind of familiar. Nevertheless, he was steadfast in his goal to ensure that the film industry could regulate cinema. He was really set on making sure that this regulation would not be done by the government. The Hays office proposed multiple documents throughout the 1920s to help studios self-censor material that audiences might find morally objectionable. However, industry critics still berated films for their offensive material. In 1929, two critics, Martin J. Quigley and writer/priest Daniel A. Lord, drafted their own guidelines. These were passed on to Hays, who tweaked them before the MPPDA adopted them in 1930. These guidelines were known as the Motion Picture Production Code, popularly referred to as the Hays Code. In her article about the Hays Code, Kristen Hunt summarizes the three main principles as: 1. No picture shall be produced which will lower the moral standards of those who see it. Hence, the sympathy of the audience shall never be thrown to the side of crime, wrongdoing, evil, or sin. 2. Correct standards of life, subject only to the requirements of drama and entertainment, shall be presented. And 3. Law, natural or human, shall not be ridiculed, nor shall sympathy be created for its violation. These limitations posed a struggle for many filmmakers trying to create morally ambiguous or socially challenging films. This was the case for Lillian Hellman when she sought to adapt her play, Lillian Hellman was an American playwright and screenwriter. Born in New Orleans in 1905, she attended both New York University and Columbia University. In the 1930s, after working as a book reviewer, press agent, play reader, and Hollywood scenarist, Hellman began writing plays. She's famous for The Little Foxes, written in 1939, and her first play, The Children's Hour, written in 1934. In 1933, her partner Dashiell Hammett recommended that she read William Ruffhead's book Bad Companions. The book was an account of the Great Drumshew case, which took place in the 19th century. The novel details two school teachers, Marianne Woods and Jane Pree, who were accused by an unhappy student of harboring an unnatural affection for each other.
What did she mean by unnatural? Unnatural. Un for not natural.
They were sent to court to deny the accusation, and they did win the case, but in the end they were still forced to close the school. The case was particularly interesting to turn into a play given the political moment. Around the time Hellman was growing up, there was a worry that all women's social institutions would result in attendees becoming lesbians. This was specifically due to worries about chumming, which were romantic friendships that came out of living in these institutions. Women were forming close bonds with one another that undermined men's role as the center of their lives, and we can't have that. However, Hellman was used to going against the grain. She was a staunch leftist, so much so that she was one of many blacklisted from Hollywood during the Red Scare. During the 30s, Hammett and herself were drawn to communism's social justice ideals, but following the start of the Cold War, they became targets of government suspicion. When she was asked to give Joseph McCarthy's House Un-American Activities Committee the names of others associated with the Communist Party, she refused to, a true comrade. Hammett suggested that Hellman try her hand at adapting the book into a play, and so the jumpsuit case became the foundation of her 1934 play, The Children's Hour. So, a quick synopsis. The play follows two school teachers, Karen Wright and Martha Doby, who run an all-girls school. To go back home to live with her grandmother, spiteful student Mary Tilford falsely accuses the teachers of being lovers. The rumor spreads, and the accusation forces the two to close the school. Karen also ends up breaking off her engagement with her fiancé Joe, as she believes his trust in her has been altered by the accusation. In the end, Martha ends up confessing that she does in fact have feelings for Karen, but unfortunately, in the end, she ends up committing suicide. Lillian Hellman's The Children's Hour was notoriously successful in its premiere in 1934 and its revival in 1952. Due to its success, producer Samuel Goldwyn was eager to adapt the play for the screen, but it would prove to be an uphill battle. Given the implementation of the Hays Code, depicting gay people on screen fell squarely into the sin category and not the correct standards of life or natural law categories. This is explicitly stated in the code as it says, sex perversion or any inference to it is forbidden. This made accurate adaptation of The Children's Hour impossible. I mean, if they adapted it, it could turn the girls gay! On top of all this, after the code took effect, the Production Code Administration would pre-screen source material such as books or plays. This was to ensure that they wouldn't lose out on investments or have to fork over the heavy expenses required to censor a work in post-production. When a representative from the PCA was sent to watch the play, the violations were directly pointed out. 1. The insinuation that the two girls are degenerates. 2. The sadistic nature of the young student. 3. The confession of the young woman that she had a mental and natural affection for her girlfriend. Friend who's a girl, not girlfriend. Unfortunately, they couldn't really do that back then. And 4. All profanity. But despite this, Goldwyn was set on trying to adapt the play. He hired director William Wyler to direct the film, his first project after signing on with Goldwyn in 1935. He also hired Hellman to write the revised script. After numerous meetings with the PCA, the film was approved to be developed, but on several conditions. A. Not to use the title The Children's Hour. B. To make no inference, directly or indirectly, in either advertising or exploitation of the picture to be made under this treatment, to the stage play The Children's Hour. C. To remove from your finished production all possible suggestion of lesbianism and any other matter which is likely to prove objectionable. So they changed it. A lot. The resulting film, These Three, came out in 1936 and starred Miriam Hopkins, Merle Oberon, and Joel McCrea. William Wyler can be thanked for casting Bonita Granville as Mary Tilford. She provides arguably the best performance in the film, even being nominated for an Oscar that year. That's where my praise for this film ends. The film centers around two school teachers named Martha and Karen who run an all-girls school and are falsely accused of Martha having an affair with Karen's fiancé Joe. The change to the central conflict leaves the film ringing hollow. Many of the lines remain the same but feel baseless. The ending also changed. They couldn't have Martha commit suicide. Instead, she decides to leave, after clearing her and Karen's names, of course. In the end, Karen romantically reunites with Joe in Vienna. Throughout the film, the women are often separated both in space and proximity. Martha in particular is depicted as extremely lonely and isolated. She is unable to be with the man she loves, and she is distanced from her close friend and business partner. Audiences were likely to go into the film knowing the play it was based on, so more scrutiny would be given to Martha and Karen's relationship. So their friendship revolves around their work and their proximity to Joe, no longer centering on their adoration for one another. This was certainly an attempt to dodge some accusations of queer content, but it didn't stop the critics. Despite the extensive changes made to the script, the film still was met with some controversy. Although they changed the name of the film, critics would still acknowledge the play was based on. So why not just give in? Wyler himself was not satisfied with his adaptation in These Three. In his own words, he claimed that Miss Hellman's play has not yet been filmed. In 1961, he was given a second chance. The Hays Code was falling out of favor by this point, and was well on its way to being replaced by the MPAA rating system that we have today. Foreign films with queer themes were making their way into American cinemas, and the PCA could do little to stop them. This allowed American filmmakers to push back on guidelines previously instituted by the administration. By 1961, the PCA conceded and stated that, in keeping with the culture, the mores, and the values of our time, homosexuality and other sexual aberrations may now be treated with care, discretion, and restraint. Although this wouldn't allow for any positive representations of same-sex couples on screen, it made sure that queer people were able to be spoken about at all, so progress, I guess? So, with looser reins, Wyler was able to direct The Children's Hour, released in 1961. Both Lillian Hellman and Rear Window writer John Michael Hayes are credited with writing the screenplay. It stars Audrey Hepburn, who plays Karen, Shirley MacLaine as Martha, and James Garner as Joe. This new film follows the original play much closer than these three. Before Martha's confession, it is incredibly clear to the audience that she is in love with Karen.
The first time I ever saw you running across the quadrangle, your hair flying. At the time I was running from a chemistry professor. I remember thinking, what a pretty girl.
She treats Garner's Joe coldly, her jealousy starkly apparent.
Why don't you pay tuition, then you could eat 3 meals a day here.
Martha, you've been a little sharp with me lately.
Have I?
Maybe it's me.
Maybe it is.
Following Martha's confession, Karen doesn't berate her. In fact, she makes it clear that she intends to stick with Martha no matter what.
Will you come with me?
In the end, however, Martha still tragically dies by her own hand, adhering to the roots of the play. Despite her tragic end, the film casts her in quite an empathetic light. This was a bit of a surprise as same-sex relations were still illegal at the time the film came out. However, the decision to keep with her suicide is critiqued, given its place in a chain of lesbians who die or commit suicide in media. According to Matthias Smith, The Children's Hour, being the first major Hollywood film under the PCA's revised standards to openly include homosexuality as a primary theme, would naturally become an important historical film for LGBT history. But Wyler's choices as director led to an unfortunate extension of harmful stereotypes of queer existence. Nowadays, there's no specific rulebook that filmmakers must adhere to when it comes to controversial topics. The closest we have now is the rating system, which does still influence what filmmakers choose to include in their movies. I mean, a film that is rated NC-17 is almost guaranteed to make less money than one rated PG-13, but still, it's nothing close to the Hays Code. Despite the improvement, production companies still have a heavy hand in limiting what is depicted. A modern example of this is the Disney film Elio. Early in the production, the film implied that the lead character was gay, a plotline inspired by co-director Adrian Molina's childhood. Molina ended up leaving the project, and these scenes were unfortunately deleted. Viewers have noted that the film seems to be missing something and that certain story beats don't work as well. This is likely because the central conflict was stripped from the final product. Sounds eerily familiar. Another example is regarding the film A Single Man. In his article, Stuart Richards explains how trailers for this film differ before being sold to the Weinstein Company and after. The initial trailer illustrates the film's gay content alongside other elements of the film's narrative. The trailer after the sale removes the kiss, leading to a case where the audience could assume that the film follows a heterosexual relationship between two of the characters. Richards says, "This approach is indicative of many LGBT films in that there is a distinct downplay of queer content to favor the quality characteristics of films. The proper representation is incredibly important as we continue to push for our rights. Film is an incredible medium to place yourself in someone else's shoes." Famously, critic Roger Ebert referred to movies as a machine that generates empathy. So, go watch I Saw the TV Glow or But I'm a Cheerleader and generate some empathy. If not for me, for the filmmakers who were prevented from making movies about their communities.
I never felt that way about anybody but you. I've never loved a man. I never knew why before. Maybe it's that. Martha, you're tired and worn out. It's funny. It's all mixed up. There's something in you, and you don't do anything about it because you don't know it's there. And then suddenly, one night a little girl gets bored and tells a lie. And there, for the first time, you see it. And you say to yourself, did she see it? Did she sense it?